Hello and welcome back. After the last video, you should now have an idea of the basic structure of an extension and of the module definition, which we can see here in the index.php. Now let's do something more interesting. Let's create a controller and make it available in the Pagekit backend. But first, let's get rid of the dummy output from before. We start by setting up the directory structure for the PHP files that we want to create. In the controller folder, create a controller class. It is located in the namespace Pagekit to-do controller. Let's create a method called indexAction. This is the default action when we access this controller's URL in the browser. For now, let's just return a simple message. Okay, so this is the basic controller. However, we only want this action to be accessible from the admin backend. For this, we'll use an annotation to limit the access to this controller action. Annotations are certain keywords you can write in the comment block above a controller method or above the whole controller class. So to limit the access to the admin area only, use the access annotation. Annotations have parameters. In this case, we set the admin parameter to be true. There are also other annotations available. You can change the default routing behavior, return different responses than just a regular view, for example a JSON response, and you can define what parameters this controller action accepts. To find out more about annotations, have a look at the Pagekit documentation. Now, before Pagekit loads this class and mounts the defined routes, we need to tell the system about the controller. For that, we go back to the index.php. Here we can use the autoload property to pass a list of namespaces to be loaded by Pagekit. In this example, we want to load the namespace Pagekit to-do, which is located in the source folder. Note how we escape the backslash with a second backslash in the string representation. Now that we have told Pagekit about our namespace, we can reference our controller when we define our routes. The routes property accepts an array of routes. We define an alias for our route at to-do to reference this route later on. The route itself is defined by its path. This path is the URL that we want to mount our route to. And then, of course, we reference our controller class. Pagekit will register all actions in this controller to the according URLs. So when we refresh the browser, Pagekit picks up the changes we've made and makes our routes available. At this point, I want to show you a nice tool, the Debug Toolbar, which comes with Pagekit. To activate it, go to the System Settings, enable the Debug mode and the Debug Toolbar. When you refresh your browser, you'll see the toolbar down here at the bottom of your screen. Click on Routes to see a full list of all routes registered at the system at this moment. So let's find our to-do route. There it is. As you can see, the annotation resulted in this admin route to be generated. So let's just access that. And that's our message. Now, of course, we don't want to access this URL manually every time. So let's add a menu item to the Pagekit main navigation. We go back to the index.php and add a new property called menu, which holds a list of menu items. Each item has an identifier and an array with all options for this item. Let's assign it a label. This is what it will say in the browser. And we also give it a URL to point to. Here we can use the route identifier from earlier. This should be enough to make it work. Let's try it out. When we refresh the browser, we can see our new item appear here in the menu. And if you didn't know, you can even move these items around to arrange the navigation to your personal preference. But let's make this look a bit prettier by adding an icon. I'm just referencing a sample icon from the system folder for now. Let's refresh and see if it works. Oh yeah, that looks a lot better. So this is the basic workflow of controllers and routing in Pagekit. Controllers for the front end of your site work exactly the same. You just leave out the admin access annotation that we put in the controller here. In the next step, we will look at rendering a view and at storing configuration to the database in a very simple way.